Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Future Ready Application Summit. My name's Paul Laverty. I lead the global black belt team in Microsoft across the Asia time zone. And firstly, I'd just like to say a warm thanks for everybody who's participated in the event today and thus far as well. So it comes with me today to introduce a special guest, Ramesh from Infosys, who's had absolutely gladly engaged in this particular part of the session today. So firstly, Ramesh, before we kick straight into things, would it be possible just to give a quick introduction to yourself in terms of what your role is within Infosys today? Thank you.
Sure. Thank you very much, Paul, for that, for having me here. And it's my pleasure to be in this summit and talking in this particular session where many organizations are keenly kind of participating. So my name is Ramesh, and I am part of the Infosys IT group. And I actually head the technology platforms in the architecture team. And our role primarily is to basically kind of cater to the various automation needs of the Infosys business.
Excellent. And so what we're here to talk about today, Ramesh, just to kind of for all of the audience's benefit as well, is just to highlight your journey that you embarked upon from moving from a legacy-based environment to microservices on the Azure platform. Would it be possible just to kind of give us some key highlights about that journey that you've been on?
Yeah, sure, Paul. If you look at it, experience has become a very key aspect today. Where our employees also, do experience, various consumer apps which are actually there in the outside world, and they expect the same kind of experiences even with the enterprise apps. So they want accessibility on the web. They want accessibility of these applications of the mobile. And today, they do not want to actually go and seek information anywhere. They want relevant information to be actually pushed to them at the right point in time. So that pull aspect is what they are actually kind of, have forgotten, and they want, data to actually get pushed to them at the right point in time so that, they get benefited out of whatever information is they are actually kind of seeking. So all these things, led us to basically think of creating our flagship application. We have an application called as Infimi that we rolled out about 4 years back to our employees on various channels. We have the mobile channel as well as the web channel on which, we had actually rolled it out. We have an application on Android, iOS, as well as on the web. And today we are actually working to basically create this Infimi application even on Microsoft Teams so that this application is ubiquitously present for our employees to basically access and complete their transactions on the various business processes wherever they are. So if I'm spending time on Microsoft Teams, I can actually kind of accomplish certain transactions right from Microsoft Teams. Or if I'm outside my working hours, on my mobile, I still am able to kind of complete the transaction from the mobile device itself. Now, our earlier instance was, that we had a lot of apps like every other organization, cutting across different processes. And of course, users were expected to kind of learn and educate themselves in terms of, what transaction is available on which app and how they can actually go into that particular app to accomplish that particular transaction. And what we did with Infimi was a unified experience of bringing in all of these transactions into a single gateway. And this proved to be the gateway from where the users can actually discover every transaction that they can actually do across any of the business processes through capabilities like we actually kind of made all the transactions searchable and discoverable from where people could actually kind of complete those transactions right from within that particular environment itself rather than having to basically get redirected to other applications. So we did achieve a superior experience for our users in this whole journey. And we were able to actually kind of push personalized content based on people's interests, based on where the people belong to. Like, for example, depending upon their geography or depending upon the industry vertical that they are working on, or depending upon the role that they are actually working, we were able to kind of push relevant information to them at the right point in time. And we also put a very good engine for capturing telemetry from all the transactions that were actually happening in this particular application to get implicit feedback, to know what the users are interested on, and thereby using this data to basically push more relevant information to them. Our employees have actually given a 4.7 rating on the Play Store for this particular thing, which is a great testimony to what we have been able to achieve. And we are pretty confident that we have been able to provide the right experience and the ease of access to our employees. Now, this journey, of course, was not an easy one. We had to basically kind of move from our earlier models of development to a model of microservices and containers, and that's something that also saw a shift in terms of client server to REST or whatever. So we had to basically kind of migrate to the microservices world, where all the things were actually exposed as microservices. And this has given us great value if you really look at it, not just in being able to kind of expose all this functionality through multiple channels like the mobile and web channels and the Teams channel that we were talking about, but it has also allowed us to basically kind of achieve the necessary level of isolation, and making sure that one microservice does not affect the other, and we are able to kind of operate independently of each other in this whole process.
Awesome. No, there's some absolutely phenomenal and interesting points that you covered there, Ramesh. And from a market perspective, and also purely on the basis of adoption of containers, particularly in the construct of Kubernetes, some of the patterns that we see, from an organizational standpoint, or from a Microsoft standpoint, I should say, is that they tend to lean towards a degree of portability, with the adoption of containers and likes of Kubernetes, but also that alignment that meets the expectation of the business, but also makes the services extremely kind of extensible and also being modular and composable by design. But lastly, one of the crucial elements is the self-healing for auto-starting, auto-scaling, and similarly for auto-replication as well. So with that in mind, what role did AKS play within Infosys and some of the key learnings that you discovered?
Yeah, so Paul, while microservices and containerization was something that we had actually kind of adopted as mainstream for our development, we of course needed a good container orchestration platform, and that is when AKS has actually come off a play here for us. We today we have a fairly large footprint of AKS in our environment. We have more than 16 AKS clusters running more than 100 worker nodes, and we have about 1,500 pods that are actually running on these worker nodes. And in fact, as we speak, we are in the process of even migrating some of our implementations that we are done with native Kubernetes to AKS right now. The biggest advantage being that we don't have to basically kind of manage it. So our operational overheads drastically decrease with our migration to AKS. But some of the other important aspects, that we have been able to achieve with AKS is the capability to monitor staff. So our services health is actually being monitored, with liveness probes and readiness probes that we have been able to implement for all the microservices that we have actually hosted on AKS. We have the capability to basically kind of shut down pods, restart pods whenever we require. Whenever, say, for example, certain events like a memory spike which happens, if you want to actually kind of restart the pods, we are able to do that with a lot of ease. We have also been able to kind of increase the number of replicas on the fly, depending upon seasonal load that we actually see as part of our environment. So it also has actually helped us kind of integrate with multiple other monitoring tools. We have external monitoring tools like Instana that we actually use for taking care of tracing all the calls that are actually being made. And Instana has agents for AKS, which we have been able to kind of use and get benefited out of it to basically be able to detect problems and immediately fix those problems. Not just AKS, of course, we have also used multiple other things, like Azure integration services. We have actually used APIM. We have actually used Azure Functions. We are actually using Event Hub for certain workloads. I mean, we use Service Bus. I mean, right now we are on the journey of actually kind of using Azure Data Factory also. We have also used, Azure App Services for certain workloads. I mean, like for example, .NET apps, and we have certain things on WordPress, which are basically template-based deployments that we are actually using app services for. So, but AKS has become mainstream for us. I mean, from a container journey perspective.
Awesome. No, you've actually touched upon some pretty phenomenal points on there, and also kind of rounded up the solution and aspect of it, incorporating other Azure related services as well. There's one other thing that I tend to hear more often than not, particularly from customers, is relative to the landing zone acceleration, or LZAs, and the criticality this particular role plays in trying to bind some of or accelerating the deployments as well. So just for the audience's purposes, if you'd like to find out more information about LZAs, then go to the main Azure website and search for kind of landing zone accelerators from an Azure perspective, and hopefully that should give you some additional information that you can read at your own leisure as well. So one other question I'd like to touch upon, Ramesh, and this also kind of goes back to, particularly for customers who have large kind of, or have to manage large application estates, it can be pretty complex, and also it can be slightly daunting as well in some respects. What kind of best practices would you specifically kind of share with the audience aimed at IT enablement services organizations who are about to embark upon that cloud native journey?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think microservices and containers are really the backbone for anybody's cloud journey. So that's something that, I mean, all of us need to adopt. If there are people who haven't adopted it, I think it is time enough for them to basically think about adopting it. And if there are people, I mean, who are already there on the journey, I think it is important for us to accelerate it. So I think this is a given that microservices and containers are there to stay, and this is one of the main things that we will have to basically kind of go towards. Some of the other best practices that we have actually followed as part of our cloud nativity is one is about, I mean, having observability in whatever we do. So implement telemetry, I mean, everywhere. I mean, whether it is to do with front ends or whether it is to do with services. I think that gives a sea of information in terms of being able to kind of detect problems proactively and fix them. I mean, it actually helps us gauge user adoption in terms of, I mean, what users are liking, what users are not liking, what users are actually using more than the rest, and be able to kind of focus more in terms of improving those capabilities. We actually use this data, like I said, for personalization also, telemetry data, and people could actually implement this using things like App Insights. I mean, Azure Event Hub. I mean, we have actually used Azure Event Hub for some of our workloads, or any other solution. There are multiple other solutions. We have even Kafka that we actually use as one of the things for storing telemetry data. The other thing is that, I mean, whenever you interact with third-party systems, I mean, always ensure that, I mean, you have wrapper services. I mean, you use a facade pattern. You use the wrapper services to basically consume the third-party APIs rather than actually integrating directly with the third-party API. I mean, we have done that. I mean, even though we actually use a lot of services of Microsoft, like Microsoft Teams, and Outlook and other things. I mean, what we have actually done is to basically build those wrapper services on top of them and be able to consume the APIs of Microsoft Teams rather than directly integrating with the Teams APIs or whatever. Because tomorrow, I mean, you do not know whether your organization is going to take this thing to basically use with a different third party, right? So when it basically shields the consumers from being able to kind of not change anything in their code, and while we actually centrally manage it around these wrapper services. And the other aspect of this thing is to have a good CI, CT, and CD strategy. I mean, continuous integration, continuous testing, and continuous deployment. So you have to necessarily adopt, I mean, DevOps platforms. I mean, Azure DevOps is a great platform to basically use, or anything that actually works for you. I mean, we do have certain internal platforms that we use at Infosys. I mean, that internally developed IPs that have been actually used for DevSecOps. Infrastructure as code is an important aspect. I mean, we need to ensure that, I mean, we are able to provision infrastructure, whether it is on the cloud or whether it is on-prem, in a very, very secure and repeatable manner. And infrastructure as a code using things like, I mean, Ansible or Terraform or whatever, I mean, is a great thing to basically have for us to be able to spin up VMs at ease with standard things, I mean, that need to actually go into each one of those VMs. And what we have also actually followed in our journey is to basically look at more and more of managed services as well as PaaS, because that takes off the operational overhead from us. It takes off the overhead of being able to kind of do patch management, or even you do not actually have so much of expectations in terms of monitoring, because a large part of it is actually being done by the provider rather than our teams having to basically do this. So these are some of the practices that we have actually kind of followed as part of our journey to the cloud and making our applications cloud native.
That's just the stuff that you've just touched upon there, Ramesh, is absolutely probably resonates a lot with our audience, particularly when it comes to having a very capable and comparable ecosystem in order to provide that surround supportability as well. What particular insights do you have when it comes to the likes of performance, availability, and also scale as well?
Oh yes, I mean, while AKs actually does allow you to basically kind of add replicas on the fly, I mean, you could kind of increase the number of pods that you are actually running to take care of, I mean, loads, which I did mention in the beginning. There has to be science behind it in terms of the number of replicas that we said, right? I mean, so performance testing is a very key aspect that, I mean, we should not be forgetting. While cloud gives you the amount of elasticity, I think it does not give us the license to basically kind of forget about performance testing. So it is very, very key for us to remember that, I mean, we need to actually do performance testing for all the workloads that we put on the cloud. Make sure that, I mean, you scientifically arrive at the number of replicas, I mean, that need to be kind of created, so that, I mean, you're able to manage the load from your user community. It also allows you to basically set those necessary memory thresholds, which are there for each one of the containers, in terms of, I mean, how much of memory can it really kind of consume, or how much of memory does it actually need for handling that kind of a load. The other aspects from a availability and scalability perspective is to basically is the implementation of the liveliness probes and readiness probes, I mean, that we have implemented across all the pods. This, of course, allows us to basically kind of have a continuous monitoring of the health of the pod and be able to kind of restart them, I mean, wherever required. The other interesting aspect that we have actually done from a performance perspective and a scaling out perspective is creation of node pools on AKS. So what we have actually done is, instead of kind of using only the replica model of actually replicating the number of pods or whatever, I mean, we have created node pools based on domain as well as technology. For example, I mean, when I say technology, it is about, I mean, Angular workloads having a separate node pool, or Node.js workloads having a separate pool by domain. And this actually has helped us basically scale out the entire pool, rather than actually kind of looking at the pod level. And we actually get better governance also using this particular thing. The other aspect from more of, I mean, pod to pod, this one is, I mean, we have actually implemented CNI-V2. So this has actually helped us, I mean, dynamically scale the pod IP addresses and achieve better performance. And we have also used, I mean, ephemeral disks, I mean, which of course, I mean, are much lesser costed than the Azure disks or whatever. But I mean, for us to basically kind of get, I mean, increased IOPS and throughput, I think it has been a great choice for us to basically use ephemeral disks.
And similarly, Ramesh, just to kind of add another point into the consideration mix as well, is there any consideration that you kind of or what we hear from our customers is that it all relates to security. How does this relate to what you did in order to then factor this into your thinking as well?
Absolutely, that's a very relevant question in today's times. I mean, with a lot of hackers around you, I mean, trying to basically kind of bring down your systems. I think security has definitely kind of taken a very, very big place in the last couple of years. I mean, with the number of cyber attacks, I mean, having increased. I think we follow a policy of zero trust security. So never trust, I mean, always verify is our principle. I mean, and we have actually kind of implemented a lot of things for defense in depth. So, for example, I mean, right from the thing for preventing data leakages, we have actually implemented the likes of Intune for all the mobile workloads, and we have conditional access that have been actually implemented for even the web workloads. I mean, so that these workloads are accessible only from managed devices. So whatever are the company managed devices, I mean, they are the ones from where these web applications are accessible from, and not on the not from any other devices which are actually connecting from the open internet. We have actually isolated subnets. The subnet to subnet communication is all controlled through NSG, and we have only private endpoints that have been actually published for all the PaaS services. So all the public access is all disabled, whether it is the Azure App Service or whether it is AKS or Key Vault or Redis that we actually use. I mean, all these places, the public access is disabled and only the private endpoints are enabled for all of these things. And even when we spin up VMs on Azure IaaS, we have the necessary controls like Qualys or FireEye that we actually implement to basically kind of monitor these things from a security perspective. All the accesses to the internet from all the machines are actually controlled through the Azure firewall. We have HSTS, which has been actually implemented, HTTPS, strict transport security, which has been actually implemented to ward off any kind of attacks, man-in-the-middle attacks or cookie hijacking attacks, or nobody can actually kind of downgrade the protocol from HTTPS to HTTP in the process. Microsoft Defender has been a great choice for us in terms of actually managing the runtime security at both the container level as well as at the Kubernetes level. So we have actually used Microsoft Defender for that. We use Front Door for some of the workloads. Front Door has actually been, in addition to being a CDN, it has also helped us to basically kind of get DDoS protection through their web application firewall. And we also use Front Door along with APIM, and APIM. There are security measures that have been implemented where only traffic which is coming in from the Azure Front Door is actually being allowed through the APIM, and we also have the capability to basically ensure that any user that actually comes through the APIM also has OIDC token. So these are some of the security measures that we have actually kind of taken into consideration while implementing our workloads.
It's really refreshing that you've kind of touched upon that, because the complexity of the problem you're trying to solve is hopefully, with the use of Microsoft technologies, provided kind of emphasis with a simplified process as well in that respect. But I just want to try and slightly change gears for a few moments and focus purely on developer productivity, which is always a topic of debate, particularly at Microsoft, because it's something that is extremely close to our hearts and has been for a number of years. Is this something that kind of factored heavily in your consideration as well?
Oh yes, developer productivity in a services organization like ours is of paramount importance. So we actually do a lot of work for our customers, and developer productivity is always something that can actually help us gain more benefits from being able to kind of churn more for less. But at the same time, developer productivity has also become very, very important today in our industry, because there has been a lot of churn. The great attrition has actually affected everybody, and our organization is also not immune to it. We have a large population in our organization which is fairly new. They are trying to basically kind of cope up with the new ways of working and the kind of work that Infosys actually does, and getting them to become productive and churn out stuff sooner than later is of very high importance for us. We want our developers to not waste their time in basically getting environments up and running on their machines and being able to deploy the applications over there. Which can actually take a week to two or whatever. We do not want those kind of wasted efforts in this process. And towards that, we have been actually looking at DevBox. Our teams have actually started exploring DevBox custom images with all the dev tools that are actually required for developers. And we have also been parallelly focusing on both the DevBox governance as well as security controls as part of this exploration. So we see a lot of promise with DevBox. Hopefully, we also kind of see a good pricing coming out of Microsoft for this particular thing. And if all of these things actually kind of turn well for us, I think we will soon be deploying dev boxes for our developers. For starting off much earlier than what they would otherwise spend time on.
Point noted on the commercial price point for it. I'll make sure that gets served to the product team over in Redmond as well. So, now many thanks for that. That's awesome that you're looking at in terms of the future. And just for the audience's purpose, so there's currently a early adoption preview available of DevBox. So again, if you go to the main Azure landing page or the main Azure website and then search Azure DevBox, then there should be a whole wealth of information that you can tap into as well. So just again, slightly changing gears as well, Ramesh, and it's probably getting towards the last of our conversation now, and this is more relative to customer experience and specifically the use case. What's your opinion regarding this, and would it be possible just to kind of get your thoughts as well?
Yes, Paul. I think from a customer experience perspective, like I said, enterprise applications have to be ubiquitously available, anywhere that the user goes in. And Teams has become a very, very key collaborative platform for our users today. Microsoft Teams has actually seen a much bigger uptick in the last couple of years. And all our users are so dependent today on Microsoft Teams. And it is important for us to basically have even applications which we are actually kind of giving to our users available on Microsoft Teams itself. So we are very closely working today in bringing in all the features that we have on this Infini application that I earlier talked about on Microsoft Teams. With a hybrid approach, of course. We are not trying to basically build everything with local Teams experiences. Local Teams experiences can be achieved with adaptive cards and task modules and all that. But we also are looking at tabbed applications through which, whatever we have developed on the web can easily be kind of made available right from within Teams. And Azure Bot Framework actually plays a major role in this particular thing in terms of being able to kind of achieve all this capability right from within Teams. We have actually used the Azure Notification Hub for many years now. I think for the last 3 to 4 years, we have actually used a Notification Hub to push notifications to users. On both Android as well as iOS. And Azure Notification Hub allows us to basically do it very, very elegantly without having to basically kind of connect specifically with Firebase or with APNS. It basically gives us a very, very elegant way of doing that. And today, we actually kind of push notifications to the extent of about 150K users, on a daily basis, and we have the peaks actually reaching to about 300K users, for specific events today. So notifications on mobile, on application transactions actually gives a lot of this thing to our end users. Like I said, performance, from a performance perspective, we have actually been using, Redis cache from the marketplace, the Azure marketplace that is available for us to kind of improve on the performance part of it. I also want to touch upon one another aspect, that we have. We do have a certain utility that we today have for sending email broadcasts to our end users, which is actually being used by many functions within Infosys for running campaigns. So whenever the HR team or the marketing team or any other team wants to run a campaign within the organization, they use this tool for sending out email broadcasts or SMS broadcasts or mobile notification broadcasts to our end users. And very recently we actually stumbled upon this thing called as Azure Communication Services that Microsoft has come out with, which can kind of complement this whole journey that we have been on. Because one of the challenges that we have always been having in this particular thing of sending these email broadcasts is that while we have been able to easily kind of send these broadcasts to our employees and assure the various business functions of successful delivery of these things, the question from the business has always been is that, okay, I want to now check the effectiveness of these campaigns. How do I do that? And with the current modes that we have, we are not able to really kind of give them the necessary data in terms of what is the effectiveness of the campaigns that they've run. And Azure Communication Services brings this particular capability that we are very, very interested in. And we are currently in the process of actually kind of looking at Azure Communication Services being included as part of this particular thing, so that we are able to give a much rounded solution to our users in terms of being able to kind of look at how their campaigns have actually succeeded and what is the other thing that they need to do to basically make it more successful.
That's absolutely awesome. And also the way you've kind of leveraged the full spectrum of capability that Azure kind of brings to bear in order to solve immediate business problems and also provide rich telemetry as well as a referenceability point is just phenomenal as well. And similarly with the use of ACS or Azure Communication Services, and as you rightly pointed out, it's got a whole wealth of capability that can bring insight and also bring things to life from a product integration path as well, which is refreshing to see from that point as well. So finally, Ramesh, we're getting to the end now of our session today. And is there any final thoughts that you've got in closing then to share with the audience?
Yeah, like I said earlier, start your journey on microservices and containerization if you haven't. I think that's basically the starting point. Of course, it might actually seem a little daunting to begin with. But once you are onto it, I think, all of us would kind of love to basically go that way because of the kind of benefits that we get out of it. And of course, use as much as managed services and PaaS as possible, because that definitely brings down the amount of operational overhead that your teams would actually have in the longer run. All of us are actually fighting with a lot of issues related to talent, and I think to go the way of managed services and PaaS is the most apt thing today to kind of make sure that we are not adding more to our pain by kind of setting up on-prem infrastructure. And of course, such sessions, whatever we are having is of immense use. So attend as much sessions as possible, because this is where, we actually get to hear about, what our other organizations are actually doing. And I do not miss an opportunity to attend such kind of sessions, and learn a few things and get a little takeaways from what other organizations are using. So such platforms are of immense use for all of us.
Awesome. Words of wisdom, Ramesh. And once again, I'd just like to thank you for your time and also for the great length that, from a detailed perspective, that you've kind of articulated your journey within Infosys to try and provide not just value for your organization, but value for your own customers as well internally, and some of those insights and lessons that you've learned across that journey as well. So on behalf of everyone, I'd just like to say a big thank you for your time, and look forward to hearing more success in the future as well. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, Paul. Nice talking to you.